Kia ora koutou, no mai haere mai, and welcome to Frogs on Friday. Now, of course, it is Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori, Māori Language Week, and for today's theme, we're looking at the importance of Te Reo Māori and values in your workplace and business strategies. What do you think the benefits of incorporating Te Reo Māori and values into your workplace are? So we're joined today by Professor Jarrod Haar, Dean's Chair in Management and Māori Business at Massey University, to discuss the importance of benefits of this and incorporating Te Reo Māori into your workplace. Also on today's show, we'll talk about why quiet vacationing is maybe not the next trend for you. We'll look at hot jobs across New Zealand, as well as opportunities for working holidaymakers in Australia and the UK. And we'll finish off with our social media poll, looking at insights into how comfortable employees feel discussing mental health in the workplace. So let's jump straight into Mahi Media. Okay, so we're talking about quiet vacationing, and if you haven't been able to keep up with all the buzzwords over the last few years, I'll explain a little about it. So quiet vacationing is when you're working remotely, but keeping your exotic location on the down low. So your boss might think you're just working from home as usual, but actually you're at the beach, lake, mountain cabin, or other holiday setting. I was asked if this is relevant to New Zealand, and I mean, even the term quiet vacationing is, of course, very American. And although I'm sure it does happen here, it's not really as big a thing here as in the US. Now, most Kiwi companies have been pretty good about recognizing the benefits of flexible working and have gotten on board with the idea that if you're getting the work done and achieving, it doesn't really matter where or when the work happens. But of course, not everyone has moved with the times, and there's still some old school employers who believe that the 9 to 5 in the office is the best for productivity. So I guess you can see why employees working for those companies are going to be a little bit tempted to stretch the limits and quiet vacation so that they don't miss out on all the benefits others are enjoying. I think they're going with the maybe it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission mindset. Now, if you're considering it, what are the risks? Of course, the big one is an erosion of trust. So, of course, and if your boss discovers that you've been actually secretly working from a holiday destination, it's definitely going to create a breach of trust, and that could potentially affect future opportunities for flexibility or even inclusion in key projects. Another possible ramification is a negative impact on the team dynamics. So you can imagine your co-makers may feel that perhaps you're less committed or maybe getting special treatment or, just nudging the relationship a bit too far to be able to get to do what you want to do. And of course, the big one, there could be disciplinary action. So, depending on company policies, this could lead to formal warnings or even termination if it's a breach of contract. So, definitely some things to weigh up there before you decide to go poolside for your mahi. The bottom line, though, is that it's all about trust. So if you don't think that your employer trusts you enough to deliver on outcomes, regardless of where you're doing the mahi, maybe it's time to look for another organisation that will. And I don't think I could have come up with a better segue to have a look at our hot jobs. Right, so first up we have a contract role. This one's based in Wellington, a graphic designer working for a government agency. This one, a really good rate, so between $80 to $100 per hour. And I know from this one as well that it does include an aspect of te ao Māori and being able to bridge the gap between cultures through your design work. So really interesting role there. If you're keen to find out more, get in touch with Mark Smith from our Wellington office. Okay, and then the permanent role for the week in New Zealand is a customer service representative role. This one's based in Mount Wellington in Auckland and run by Scott Bannister. So this is working with one of our major clients in the medical devices and technology space. So a really important and involved role where you're the go-between their customers, who a lot of the time will be hospitals and other medical practices, as well as internal teams such as sales, distribution, and the warehouse teams, for example. And being able to make sure that all these orders and deliveries go through smoothly. So, of course, excellent customer service aspect will be really important for this, and it's a chance to work with a global company and leaders in their field. If you're interested in this role, get in touch with Scott, or actually I'm helping him out on this role, so you can give me a call as well. Okay, let's take a look at some of the roles on offer across Australia and the UK. So we have a people services administrator role paying between $43 to $48 per hour. Nice rate there. That one's based in Melbourne. Accounts assistant, Queensland or Brisbane. This is a permanent role, 70 to 75k, and a corporate solicitor for our team in London in the UK. Again, this is just a sample of the roles that we have available. So if you do feel the need that you do have to make the move either across the ditch or further afield, make sure that you let us know and we can put you in touch with our great teams across Australia and the UK. Our guest today is Professor Jarrod Haar, who's the Dean's Chair and Professor of Management and Māori Business at Massey University. Kia ora, Jarrod.
Kia ora. Lovely to be here.
Oh, that's great. Thanks so much for coming on today. So we're talking about the importance of te reo Māori in the workplace and as well as incorporating into more general business strategies as well. Before we jump into that, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and how your career has developed to this current role?
Oh, sure. So let's start off by introducing myself. So, ko tānu i te waka, ko Ngāti Mani Apautu me Ngāti Mahuta na iwi ko Jarrod Haar toko ingoa. I started my PhD. I finished my PhD in 2003. And I really did my PhD because in my master's, I was learning all these wonderful HR insights from America. And I had an American teacher in New Zealand, and I just kept saying to him every class, I'd say, well, sir, this is really cool. What's it like in New Zealand? And he'd say, well, I don't know. He was from Atlanta, Georgia. And so I really did my PhD to find out some stuff in New Zealand. So I've just become happily obsessed with data collection, data analysis, figuring out stories. And once I've got myself comfortable, I have kind of branched out into a kind of, I guess I'd say a te ao Māori worldview, probably a good 14 odd years ago, 15 years. And I've been kind of researching that as part of my ongoing research into, Māori culture in the workplace, Māori HRM and things like that. And that's where I am today at Massey University, having a ball. So, and it's a lot of fun, I have to say.
Oh, fantastic. Now, I'm sure across those 15 years or so that you will have seen, I know, experience even in the time that I've been back in New Zealand the last 7 years or so, a big change in this area. So how do you think the world of work has grown in regards to supporting Māori businesses or promoting Māori voices in Aotearoa?
Yeah, well, actually, and I teach a Māori business paper, and I can tell you what the literature says. About 2015, it says, yes, there must be some Māori business, and we don't really know much about it. And then in 2016, Stats New Zealand goes, yes, there must be about 3,000 Māori businesses out of, 900,000 or something. And when you look at the numbers, you're just like, wow, that's kind of incredibly low. And part of the challenge for Stats New Zealand was figuring out how to define a Māori business. Where we are kind of in the last couple of years is 30,000 and growing. And I think there's always been a healthy number. I do think that has grown, but more recently, I think Stats New Zealand have become better at identifying and letting businesses rate themselves as a Māori business. So yeah, we have seen a phenomenal growth, I think, in all things Māori in a really positive way, and especially from a business, employment, economics, opportunity kind of way. To which my friend said to me this very morning, he said, bro, it's like, he's loving Māori Language Week, and said to me, and I said to him, bro, it's your superpower, right? It's the superpower. So I think it's a really positive outlook out there amongst Māori, albeit that there is a large chunk hired in the public sector. And obviously that's a segment that's under some challenges at the moment anyway.
Definitely. Well, I guess keeping it on the positive as well, for those organisations that are looking at supporting Māori businesses or even to improve the diversity inclusion programs to attract Māori talent within their own organisations, what advice would you have for them?
Yeah, so not only advice, but backed by research. I've done some recent research on this, and what we find is if Māori rate their company as making positive steps towards Māori representation, Māori leadership, they are more likely to love their jobs, be engaged, not want to quit, and have better well-being, which sounds totally fabulous, but the important missing part there is that, and those benefits are shared by Pākehā. This isn't a Māori only benefit, right? Why do non-Māori think looking after Māori is important? Because we recognize, the country recognizes in general, the positive role that Māori culture, Māori language plays in society, in sport, in the workplace. And I think we see this coming through, that if I work for a company and we are supporting a minority group who are tangata whenua, we're aiding their development and growth in the organization, you know what? That's a great place to work. If you're a other minority, if you're a woman, because if they're going to do it for Māori, guess what? They'll be more likely to look after you. And it's just this, I think Kiwis are quite fair and like everybody getting a chance. And I think companies that take that kind of inclusion step to look after Māori signal that, yeah, we're a great place to work. And those benefits, importantly, are shared across all the workers, not just Māori.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I know a lot of organisations really want to move in this direction and take things on board, but maybe don't know how to start or are afraid of getting it wrong. What are some challenges that you've seen different organisations face when perhaps incorporating te reo or te ao Māori into their organisation, and what can they do to overcome some of these obstacles?
Yeah, I think the first thing would be to encourage activity, right? If you spend too much time, it's almost like paralysis by analysis. If you spend too much time thinking about it, the fundamental advice I'd say is around tino rangatiratanga, self-determination, ask your Māori staff. Hey, what would you guys like to do? Oh, I'd love it if we did more te reo Māori classes. Choice. And my one hint here is, if you run that free course in lunchtime, i.e. my time, not the company time, you signal to your staff that, yeah, we want to support it, but not really. It is a tick box. So encourage to run it before lunch, after lunch, not in lunch, because then you're showing, hey, we're committed to doing something like this. And I think, it's those little baby steps that will help develop things. I totally understand that elements of tikanga might be quite complex, but I do think the rail journey is one that you could start relatively simply. Encourage all your staff to participate. If they don't want to do it, 𝗁𝗂𝗍𝗶, that's all right. They don't have to. But again, not in personal time. Make it in work time to show that you're committed. Then there's plenty of resources out there. There's some really cool experts out there who can run these sessions. We are in the Zoom or Teams world, so these things can be done online now, so much easier. So I guess it's just encouraging companies to make a start. And I should point out, I've done other research showing that organisations that promote te reo Māori is beneficial to like job satisfaction and engagement for, again, Māori and non-Māori. Pākehā, other minorities think, yeah, this is a real cool little bonus to learn at work. So further evidence of the benefit of te reo Māori.
Seems like a no-brainer. Now, you mentioned there about tips like, not kind of putting it in the not the shadows, but making sure, it's only at lunchtime, so maybe downplaying the importance of things, and that is something that organisations need to be careful of as well, and feel to make sure that their use of te reo Māori or bringing in that tikanga is meaningful and not just seen as a tick box exercise as well. What ideas do you have around that?
Yeah, I think that's and people will sniff it out from a mile away, right? If we get inundated with kia ora emails and your first thought is like, whoa, what's this? I've never had, be honest and say, hey, everybody, as part of Te Reo Māori Week, I'm going to start here's a little introduction or something. If you can get the CEO on board, now we start to signal to everybody that we're serious. Again, if we're paying for training or we're bringing an expert in, those are the things that, if you've got, this is so-and-so who doesn't really speak a lot of te reo Māori, but he's now going to lead this next session in lunchtime because we're cheap. It will feel like a tick box exercise and everybody will kind of switch off. You won't get that genuine buy-in. And maybe if your Māori staff say, hey, we want to build our competency up first, great. If that's the advice you're getting, target that group, help them become a bit more confident, and then say, hey, look, now the next thing I want to bring it out to the rest of the organization. How could you play a role if that helps? That kind of thing. I think it's just about, taking a step, taking a genuine commitment, being perhaps a little bit tentative is fine. We don't have to be speaking everything fluently. but understanding the processes, because as a Māori, if I hear somebody mihi and give their background and they can tell me that they're from Scotland and this is their mountain and their river and their ancestors came to Aotearoa on this ship, I just think far out that it's just the coolest thing. And so I think those kind of meanings can have real insight for everybody, not just for Māori. So I think it's about kind of demystifying some of this thing and encouraging people to participate. And any te reo speaker will be glad that you're having a go, as opposed to only speaking in English and never trying. So, I think that's something to be, and if they're not, then go and find a better speaker who's going to give you the support, right? And say, yeah, Joyce, that's good on you for having a go. Because I think, we've seen how challenged te reo Māori was in Aotearoa, and now we're having this renaissance. And I think the more we can do to support it, including in the workplaces, the better for the country in general.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's important to recognise that everybody's on going to be on a different stage in that journey, but the important thing is that you get on board. And even if it's just trying to incorporate a few more phrases or understanding a little bit more each year at least, this is a good reminder in this week, but just incorporating it into your everyday. I do love been lucky enough to get have a few work trips over to the people group in Australia, and I do love it that when you come into the airport, the sign for the plane that's just landed actually says from 𝗪𝗵𝘁. So it's pretty cool that it's gone from coming here, seeing it being more normalized on things like the news and the weather, etc. But also that's spreading out and going overseas as well is just amazing.
And we should give a big shout out to those news readers, because I've been following them all week, and man, some of their kōrero, their introductions are really, really well done and well practiced. And I just think what a great way to communicate to the youngest generation, right? Who can grow up and see that and listen to it and go, Joyce, this is a normal thing, right? And this is how we'll make the language grow and be strong.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for coming. I've really enjoyed this kōrero, and we'd love to have you back again another time as well. Thanks, Jarrod.
Lovely stuff. Kia ora. Thank you.
All right, let's take a look at our social media polls. Okay, so we were talking about mental health in the workplace last week, and asked if you feel comfortable discussing your mental health openly in your workplace. So some mixed results, but really positive to see that the majority there felt supported in being able to talk about their mental health. And I'm sure if we look back, if we ran this poll even 5 years ago, the results would have been really different. So great to see, again, that it's becoming more accepted, and the stigma's taken away from talking about our mental health just as we would our physical health. Let's take a look at this week's poll. Would you rather work for a company aligned with your values but lower pay, or one that's misaligned with your values but offering higher pay? Bit of a tricky one, especially as we're still grinding through the cost of living crisis. So it will be very interesting to see how the results come out on this. As always, we'd love to see your comments as well, and tell us a little bit about your experiences and thoughts. That is it for today's show. Really enjoyed you being here. Be sure to join us next week as well. Ka kite anō.